All right, thank you everybody for joining us today for cleaning up Salesforce for your move to Lightning. Next slide, please. All right, we have three presenters today. I'm Tom. Then next up in the demo for a short overview of the tool, we'll have Sridhar. And we also have Lena with us today from a great blog, sf9to5.com. She's also a monthly columnist for salesforcebin.com. And she's going to show you some of the ways she uses Snapshot to clean up orgs as they're moving on to the horizon, which is Lightning for everybody. Okay, so just briefly, the product that you're looking at today is Snapshot. Snapshot, we like to say that it's org management for Salesforce. It really had its roots in change and release management, and of course it still does that, but it's really grown to be a full-on org management tool, and it's really what I think makes Snapshot a very unique product in the market today. If you broke it down into some broad categories, one thing that we do is clicks not code release management for admins. So all of the power and the capability of using the Salesforce API directly, and a lot more functional and powerful than things that you might see like Cloud Deploy out there, but it gives you the real power to be able to fully handle your release cycles without having to understand XML or be a developer. You can dive to that level if you are, but it's really not necessary. So clicks not code release management. We have very powerful data migration tools to move small or large data sets between Salesforce orgs. We have some excellent data dictionary style documentation to document the state of your Salesforce org for administrator reference or compliance. And what we'll see today quite a bit is we also have a whole suite of tools for doing org optimization and cleanup. So really getting rid of that bloat in your org and getting your org tuned up nicely so that it's ready to move to the next phase. And lastly, we also have a suite of tools that let you manage everybody's favorite part of Salesforce, the profiles and permission sets. So we have a set of security tools that really make it easy to see the security for profiles and permission sets, to compare them across orgs, to do math editing, to look for security elevation. So really, Snapshot is a very comprehensive tool for Salesforce admins and developers that really gives you all of the tools you need, not just to manage your releases, but also to manage your org and put it into the shape that it needs to be as you move to a release or you move to a milestone like Lightning. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the demo here. We're going to hand it off to Sridhar. He's going to give us a quick overview of Snapshot so that everybody can kind of see some of the parts and pieces of the tool. And then we'll have Lena coming in to show us some of the ways she uses it. So with that, off to you, Sridhar.
Thank you, Tom. So let's just jump right in, folks. So Snapshot, as Tom mentioned, is started off as a change and release management app, and then we have kind of grown over the years to do full-fledged org management. I'm going to show you some of the features that help you get there. So starters, what you see here is my deployment pipeline. Snapshot gives you the capability to connect to various content repos, Bitbucket, GitHub, TFS, SVN, whatever, and connect those to Salesforce orgs. This could be any kind of orgs, could be your Scratch org, could be your production org, sandbox, developer edition, pre-release orgs, custom domain, doesn't really matter. Wherever it's hosted, if it's on a government cloud, health cloud, financial services cloud, financial cloud, whatever you have, we have the ability to connect with that and then pick up all your metadata and help you analyze and maintain your org. So let's start off with disaster recovery. So towards that, we give you the ability to create metadata backups. These could be backups of any org and any kind of metadata that is serviced by the Metadata API, which means packages, profiles, permission sets, objects. If you want to go grab all your Apex classes, page layouts, you can get all of that metadata downloaded to your machine. So offline backups to help you see how org is structured, and in case something happens to the org, somebody blows away your object permissions, or somebody changes your workflow rules or updates your page layouts in an unexpected manner, you have that insurance copy with you to restore that metadata and move things forward. Towards that purpose, we also offer schedules to take daily, weekly, monthly, whatever kind of backups you want. These backups can be used in multiple ways. For starters, a lot of our customers use org monitoring services or org monitoring capabilities through Snapshot. In essence, what that means is you can let Snapshot monitor your org and pick up any metadata that you would like. So you can go grab any difference there across any pieces and then document. So this is going to go through all your orgs there and then identify what pages changed, what custom objects changed, sharing rules, profiles, anything that changed in a particular org over a chosen time period. So great ways of putting that into a schedule to say, tell me everything that changed in my org, and then send that to me via email or chatter, and send that to me via in CSV format, HTML format, PDF format, whatever you prefer, right? So great capabilities to monitor your org. And these things, by the way, can be connected to each other org there, or repos to orgs, and that can be used for multiple things. For example, comparison helps you see a high-level view of the differences. It highlights all the metadata types that are different, shows you what the differences are, and you can also drill in any piece there and see the actual differences and then jump through those differences. And that's useful for code as well. I can go into a Apex class, choose something that is different, or see what things have been introduced new, move things over, jump between differences and see those differences. If I want to merge code, I can do that as well right here. And Tom mentioned we also take care of profiles. We have the ability to not just download your profiles, help you see those profiles. We can use those profiles in a nice little matrix format. You're seeing profiles against objects. We're looking at object permissions. And that's laid right next to each other, so you can see new profiles or updated profiles. Any part of your profile can be grabbed and then diffed and then migrated over using Snapshot. Now, we've seen diffs and backups, and next part is, of course, migrations. We're going to go towards the actual deployment here. And before you start deploying, on both sides, both the source and the destination, we highlight wherever there are changes. So before you start migration, you've taken a backup, but then somebody started modifying your org itself, we can highlight that for you. I'm going to ignore those backups, the differences there, and move forward. As part of the migration, we show differences, and you can pick and choose any part of your org. It could be as simple as a single field permission, field level security, or an entire permission set, or you want to move a tab, or entire object, or a particular field, whatever you prefer. We have the ability to help you create an appropriate job list for you, and that can be created based upon differences, relationships, whatever you prefer. You could delete metadata as part of the migration, and before you migrate anything, you can validate that deployment, do a transactional migration, or even a partial deploy. Along with the deployment, we keep track of any change that you make using Snapshot, which means there is a central location that stores any deployments that was done using Snapshot. So if you take a very standard deployment pipeline, dev, test, stage, production, all of those changes come into a central location. So it's all data that you can run reports on, dashboards on, or set up an email alert there. Tom migrates a profile, send me a note to tell me which profiles Tom touched so I can go validate them, things like that. Right? And that can all be put into a schedule, or you can also enable continuous integration on any of these segments of Snapshot or of the deployment pipeline using Snapshot. Now, we've talked about change and release management. The part that Lena is going to focus on today is the org documentation and optimization. Using these backups, you could do a lot of different things. For starters, a data dictionary. This helps you document how your org is structured, objects, fields, where are these things being used, things like that. So for example, field properties, you can identify the field, what type of the field it is, picklist values that are part of it, what fields are required or not. If you're using Shield, we can document the encryption scheme, default values, descriptions, help text, formulas behind it, who last modified this field, who created these fields. Every single thing is documentable. Plus, you can also figure out where these fields are being used across what report types, page layouts, triggers, classes, all over the place. And all of our reports, by the way, folks, with a single right click there, you can export them all or share it with your colleagues there, or schedule it to say, once a month, run this report and send that to me via email. I want that to be in CSV, PDF, or HTML format. Whatever you prefer, we have the ability to do it. Other things that Snapshot can do, org optimization, we're going to be seeing this in a lot of detail with a real world scenario there, but just a very high level overview here. Field usage, picklist usage to help you see how things are being used. It's not just whether a field has data or not. We can also show you whether that data is default data or some real data, right? So a lot more drill down capabilities available. And that can be done for any metadata. Forgotten assets goes through any metadata that you have in your org, email templates, custom objects, tabs, roles, queues, groups, whatever. And we can identify the list of, in this case, email templates that are not really being used because there is nothing that's using it, whereas other things are being used by workflows, email alerts, their approval process, whatnot, right? Finally, from a security perspective as well, we have great reports to help you identify who has access to what and where did that access come from. So when I go into a display report, looking at this particular user, Bill Appleton, shows me for the account object, he's assigned the custom standard user, which gives him read and view only, but that is elevated by using these permission sets that finally give him full access. So great ways of identifying why somebody has access to a particular field or object or class as well. So Snapshot, as Tom mentioned before, is a full-fledged org management tool, which gives you all the capabilities, taking backups for disaster recovery, org monitoring, comparing between orgs, deploying all of that stuff, and great deployments there to help you understand how your org is structured and maintain your org in an easy manner. That's really what Snapshot is designed for. Now, we've talked about a lot of this stuff theoretically. Let's see the same thing in a real world scenario. And to talk about that, we have with us Lena. She's one of Silicon Valley's premier bloggers. Lena, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Lena, full name Yelena, but I like to go by Lena. I run SF 9 to 5. I post weekly, almost as much as I can, about all the different things that I run across as a Salesforce consultant for a small San Francisco-based consulting firm. I focus a lot on CPQ, tips and tricks, and just your day-to-day life as an admin sort of thing. I've been in Salesforce since 2015 and really loving it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Lena, you've kind of blogged about this in a lot of detail here, and all of us here are painfully aware of this as well. Winter is coming with that. Lightning is becoming mandatory. And in one of your blogs there, actually you've written a lot of this stuff, but in one particular blog entry there, you had specified as part of going into Lightning, you had recommended cleaning up your objects and decluttering your page layouts and such. Can you help explain why that's important, especially at this point in time as part of Lightning migration?
Yeah, so one of the big differences between Lightning and Classic, other than the fact that Lightning is really a much more modern day system, is that Lightning is relying a lot more on our browser, which is called, client-facing processing. So a lot of it is running on the browser's power to transform the information to the user. In Classic, we were relying on servers, Salesforce-based servers, to do pretty much everything. And so Salesforce in Classic used to control the timing and everything of how fast things got displayed. When you look at something that is browser-based, client-side facing, if you have too much running on a single page, say too many related lists or too many fields, you can actually slow your page down. And, sometimes Lightning has gotten a bit of a bad rep for being slow, and the last thing you want to have happen as you're trying to transition to Lightning is have your users complain about it being slow. So one of those ways that you can help mitigate that is by actually reducing the number of fields and reducing the number of related lists that you have on your page layout. And we're going to focus primarily on fields today. And doing that will help both your users in their experience, but also just from an optimization perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, talking about this is definitely helpful. Do you have anything to show us how you have done this for other customers as well?
Yes, I do. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
Go right ahead.
All right. Are you able to see my screen all right?
I can.
Awesome. So this is my org space. I have just a single instance set up for today, showing you what I would usually have for any company I work with, which is a dev sandbox, a partial, a staging or UAT instance, and then production. Generally, when I go to do any of these reports, I either do the report directly from production, or I make sure that I have a new sandbox or a recently refreshed sandbox. And the reason I say that is, in sandboxes, we often create a lot of extra fields that potentially never make it to production. And since we're focusing on cleaning up production, we really only want what's there and what's live. For the purpose of this demo, though, I am going to do it out of my newly created dev sandbox. And so I'll go ahead and show you. We're going to start with looking at the field usage report. So I just right-clicked in there, and I'm going to go ahead and click field usage. For today's demo, I'm going to be looking at the opportunity record object, but of course you could do this across any of your objects, and you should really focus on the ones that are heavily used by your users as you go through this. So I've got opportunity selected. I'm going to select all records. I don't want to filter any types of records. I want everything that's in use. And then I'm going to go ahead and click next. And what this is going to do is it's going to run a report on all of my fields. And so I can show you in here what this gives us. So it gives me all the list of my fields. You can tell the difference between the custom fields and the standard fields by the __C. And you could tell the difference between a packaged field, something that came from a managed package like CPQ, versus something you created by looking for that namespace prefix at the beginning, like CPQ has the SBQQ. We have our labels, of course, what type of field it is, and then this is where that records selection came from. It's looking at how many records are there total. So I have 42 opportunity records, and then it's telling me how many are default populated based on that particular field, how many are empty, and then the distinct values used, then the % of default, % of empty, and % of distinct. And then lastly, I have my details in case there's some extra information about when it was created and such about that field. The next step I can do from here is I'm going to right-click and export as CSV. I'm actually going to skip this step, though, for today because I already have this downloaded and ready to go. So this is exactly that report. I'm just going to show you that I have it here. I'm not going to do anything with this right now. This is part one. We just wanted to capture what our field usage is. Now, this is on its own a great report. You could even start looking at things that are 100% empty and going from there. Of course, looking at where it is actually a custom field, because if it's standard and it's 100% empty, there's not a lot you can do about it. But, looking at ones like this one, I have a field that's never been used. So that's what you can do. Sridhar?
Yeah, so what you have kind of shown here is a way to grab your fields and identify what fields are being used. But you talked about how this can be kind of, you could use that to find out what fields are being used in what page layouts, because Lightning is all about that, right? And that's kind of what you're talking about there, decluttering your page layouts and such. How do you go about doing that?
So the next step in this process, we're going to go back into our snapshot, and I'm going to pull up another report now. Now we're going to use the field versus page layout. This report is great because it's actually going to tell me, based on the object I select, which fields are used on which layouts. And I know if you're an admin out there, you have heard that question, or you have felt the pain of trying to figure out if a field is on a layout, and especially like I only have 5 layouts in this demo org. But we all know we end up with like 50 layouts sometimes, and trying to figure out where something is a pain in the butt. So this is a great report for that. So again, same process. We can export this as a CSV. And so I'm going to actually go to my example one. So this is my small list of fields. And as you can see at the top, I can tell based what the name of the page layout is. And this is my list of fields. So this is all the fields that I have on the layout. So I'm going to go back for a second. Very long list of fields, very short list of fields. So I don't have everything on my layouts. And so this is where we get into the crux of all of this and the interesting part. So I'm going to actually use a VLOOKUP, or I would if I didn't already have this made, and a bit of a pivot table to combine these two reports to get to the bottom of which fields are on layouts and which are not. And so on my sheet 3, as you can see, I have my pivot table. And all I've done here is I've gotten a count of how many layouts it's on. So I could do up a sum at the very end, because in cases where I may only have it on one layout, it may not be so relevant. And then from here, I can actually take it and I can go, oh, sorry, Zoom is getting in my way. There we go. I can actually use a VLOOKUP from that pivot table back to my original fields list and display per field how many layouts it's on. And this is really great information, because when you have much more data than I have displayed in my demo, it's great to be able to see the usage of a field in comparison to its data population. Think about something like a formula. Formula might get filled out 90% of the time. If you don't have it on any layouts, then the question is, are you using it in a report? Or are you just not using it at all? And it's something that was made a while ago and it's now become ancillary.
So, Lena, what I understand is you use Snapshot and Excel to go figure out which fields have data in there, and you notice, you kind of pointed out, what has defaulted data and such, and then you went in and figured out what page layouts are using what fields and crunch all that stuff. But I can't just pick up any of those fields that I found as not necessary and delete them nilly-willy, right? I mean, those fields could be used in other things, Apex classes and workflows, whatnot. How do you account for things like that?
Of course, yes. We do not want to ever just go about deleting fields, especially if they have data in them. You are likely to make somebody not very happy if you just went and did that. So the next piece that we can do is we can go back into our sandbox again, and we're going to this time look at the view assets report. This one. Okay. So what's great about the view assets report is this kind of gives you an overview of everything. And what I love to use about this is the show search palette, because here I can pretty much type in anything I want. So I'm going to put in a field from the opportunity, and I could do a search, and it's going to look every single place that field is. It's going to check my reports. It's going to check my workflows. It's going to check Apex. Anything obviously that I have in my snapshot, it's going to check and see if it's there. Now in this case, I only have this on the layouts. But if I had this in some Apex triggers and some Apex classes, obviously I'd want to do more due diligence before I would make the decision of, going about and deleting anything. It's really critical to think about, whether or not you are okay to delete something. But even if you're not deleting it from the system, you potentially could remove it from the layout, which of course is the end goal we're trying to get to, is we want to reduce the clutter on our layout. So if it's not, it's not part of your business process and you don't have a lot of people filling it out, then, confirm with the people who are doing your day-to-day activities. But if everybody is happy and you're not seeing this as something that needs to be populated as a required field, go ahead and take that off the layout and reduce the amount of stuff that your users have to go through. I have some really great resources on my site as well about the related lists. So feel free to check that out. But that is how to look for decluttering your fields.
Fantastic. And one pro tip I would add there is Snapshot provides interesting functionality called Snapshot nodes. So you can add nodes to pretty much any metadata that you might have, classes, fields, roles, queues, whatever, that you can document, who is using this or who to talk to before you go modify a particular field. That's all part of Snapshot. So that said, so Lena, kind of summarizing what you just said and showed me here, you just first went through Snapshot to create a field usage report to identify what fields have data or not. Then you went around and looked at fields versus page layout report to identify what fields are in what page layout. And that also showed some interesting things like what permissions are set for that, whether it's enabled for edit or read only, or if it's a required field, so you always must populate that particular field in that page layout and such. Then you turned around, picked up that fields that you have designated as maybe to be deleted, and you ran a report there to find out where that is being used. And earlier when we talked there, we talked about how that could be figured out because it's doing a full text search in the entire snapshot to identify wherever it's being used, meaning if that field is being used in a field or a Apex class or a process builder flow, anywhere that thing is being used, you could go identify that. So that way, hey, I shouldn't be touching that. Am I saying all this right?
Yes, you are. I think that's a great summarization of what I went through.
Great. And it also seems to me that you were able to do all that stuff pretty fast using Snapshot there. How would that experience be if I was not using Snapshot?
Yeah, pardon the pun, but it was lightning fast. Trying to do this process other ways, it takes a lot of time. It's a very tedious process. You're manually looking at fields, looking at page layouts. What this really gets you to is a condensed list of information that you can then use to go do your business analysis, talk to any stakeholders or users, and ensure that you've got the right information before you take your next steps. You would spend hours upon hours if you were trying to do this manually. So Snapshot definitely does save the day when it comes to this information.
Fantastic, fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. All right, thank you so much for walking us through that real world scenario then. I guess then back to you then, Tom.
Thanks, Sri. Sri, if you go ahead and just share the slides there. I've just got a slide about our upcoming events, and we're also going to do a little bit of Q&A. Got some questions that have been coming in. We've been answering some of them back to you in the chat or what have you, but I'm going to repeat a few here for the audience because I'm not sure all of these were visible to everybody. But just before we get started, one of the questions we've been having is how can I go check this thing out or show it to my team? We did put a link to the App Exchange listing in the Q&A, and I'm also going to add one here into the chat, or Sridhar, if you could add a link to the App Exchange listing into the chat for everybody, please, so they'll know where that is. And also you can see our contact information here. Feel free to email us at sales@Metazoa, or call one of our numbers, or tweet at us, and we'll be sure to get back to you. We have a 14-day trial that's available, so you can go and fire up Snapshot, kick the tires. We do free training for trials. So once you start a trial, reach out to us and we'll put your team that's going to evaluate through a complete training class to get you up to speed on how to do this stuff, like the things you saw today. And make sure that when you go out and take it for a spin, that you're prepared and you're making the best use of your time during your evaluation. Just a couple of quick things. We're going to be at Northeast Dreamin' next week. That's Monday, Tuesday. So if you're up in New Hampshire, which I'm hoping is a lot cooler than it is here in Atlanta, I'll be there, and come by our booth and check us out. If you're in the Philly area, we're going to be at the Philadelphia User Group on the 26th. And of course, we will be at Dreamforce. We don't have all the booth numbers and all that yet. But if you follow our Twitter up there at Metazoa, you'll be able to keep abreast of all that kind of stuff. Okay, so just a couple quick questions. One question we got was, will we get a copy of this? I want to show it to my colleagues, and the answer is yes. We're going to send the recording out to everybody that registered. It'll probably be Monday before we get that out, but we'll get you a link, and then you can click on that and watch a playback of the entire session. Another question was around pricing. So how do you price the product? So we're pretty flexible. We price it in two ways. One is per user. So buying a license for an admin or a developer maybe that wants to use it. But we also do site licensing. We call it unlimited licensing. So once you get to a team of maybe more than 5 or 6, the site licensing is often a better deal. And that opens the door where you can really open the product up and get it used by your entire team. It gives you sort of unlimited licenses. And either way that you buy it, support and training are obviously included as part of the deal. One of the other questions we got was, can you roll back on the deployment part that Shrito demoed briefly at the beginning? Can you roll back changes? And the answer is yes. We actually have a rollback deployment selection that will build the job list based on the deployment that you did, sort of a reverse of it, if you will, and let you roll back the changes that you made. You can also selectively roll back deployments as well, which is great. So
if I could add,
we have another question. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Tom. One more kind of a additional point there about the rollback. We can roll back based upon differences in the org, or roll back based upon a previous deployment that you had done. So that is in addition to letting you going in and selecting any piece there. So multiple ways of letting you decide what makes sense for your org before you go ahead for the rollback. And again, that will also be recorded in your managed package, so you will be able to show your auditor that X was migrated over, and then there was a problem noted, and then X was rolled back, so it was deleted from the org. And if that was a update that you had pushed out, how the update was rolled back, and the original configuration was put back there. So every piece of deployment feature set is brought into your rollback as well.
Yes, thank you. Here's one that's for Lena or Sridhar, either of you may want to answer this. We have a user that's asking, do we have an option to see if the field is being used in any Apex classes? And I think you actually may have kind of touched on this, Lena, during your presentation.
Yes, I did. So in that last step that I took when I did the view assets, as long as your snapshot includes Apex classes as part of it, if that field is in any of those classes or triggers, it will find it and it'll bring it up as part of that search.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's really that search is really comprehensive. It'll touch any parts of the metadata that you backed up. So, whether it's used in page layouts or Apex classes or, anything else, it'll show that there, and you'll know exactly what's going to happen if you're maybe going to delete the field or make other changes. Okay, great. So one other question here, Sridhar, probably for you here. They asked, what other types of cleanup can I do besides fields?
Yeah, that's a great point. Going to Lightning is a great time to start up a clean off your org there. So in addition to fields and picklist usage reports there, there's also a nice little report that I kind of alluded to, and I think I popped it up as part of my very quick overview as well. We call that forgotten assets. And what that is designed for is to help you identify unused metadata across pretty much any metadata that you have in your org. It could be email templates, or it could be queues, roles, groups, whatever, workflows, profiles, permissions, whatever you have in your org, right? It has the ability to go and identify that, and it uses various mechanisms to figure out why we mark something as unused as well. So we can go figure that part out, and that can also be brought into the deploy to delete or inactivate, whatever you prefer, right? And before the question goes there or a follow-up comes to that, yes, you can do this for reports and report types as well. That's one of the most asked questions when we start talking about cleaning up other metadata. So we could go clean all that stuff up, delete entire folders of reports if you so prefer as well. And that will be tracked in the deployment log as well.
Great. Thanks, Sri. Okay, well, hopefully that gave everybody a good look at some ways that you can clean up your org and get it running in tip-top shape as you move to Lightning, or maybe you're just going through an optimization and cleanup phase. It's always a good thing to do, even if you've already moved to Lightning. So with that, we'll sign off for the day. I want to thank everybody for their time today. We'll go ahead and leave the slide up here for just a bit. So if you want to get our contact information, you'd like us to give you a demo, just reach out. We'll give you a demo for you or your team, and we can show you how it can help you out as well. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Lena and Sridhar.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone.